point, I would introduce you to Mark, who is a deacon and has worked with marginalized people for the past 24 years, 18 of them with men returning to the community from incarceration. And he is the executive director of the Brampton Prison Ministry. And today we're fortunate to have members of the Brampton Prison Ministry and Circle of Hope with us in the workshop, looking at ways to help support ex-offenders' reintegration into the community. Mark, to you.
Good morning. In our communities, there are men and women who are all but invisible. They are standing beside you at the grocery store, walking in front of you in the mall. They don't dress any particular way. They don't look any different from your neighbors. There's nothing to make them stand out. These are the recovering. They are people who have lived damaged lives, and eventually lives that led them in a downward spiral to criminal behavior, and eventually to prison. Prisons are places of punishment, and yet from the beginning, from their inception, they have also been places of recovery. No, I'm not trying to say that when someone goes to prison, they change their lives. Most don't. But some do. We're here this morning to talk about the ones who try to make a new life for themselves. Let me begin with a story about a man we will call Paul. When he was 40 years old, after more than 20 years of going in and out of prison, Paul decided it was enough. He'd been promising his mother for years that he would change, that he'd kick his addictions, and yet there he was, back again in jail. It wasn't like he was enjoying being here, but this was the only life he knew. These were the only people he knew. He wanted to change, but he didn't believe he could. He'd lost all hope, and he didn't believe that there was any way out except death. But he was also terrified of dying. The hardest part of changing is finding a reason to change. For many, it's the fear of dying, dying the way they are now, dying in the life that they're living now. And for some, it's a kind of fatigue. They just can't do this anymore. When Paul was finally released, the only family he had was his mother, a 65-year-old woman living in supportive housing. Paul had lots of friends, but they were all living the kind of life he was trying to escape from. And besides, he had a probation order. It said he was only allowed to, actually it said he wasn't allowed to associate with known criminals. He'd be in breach and would possibly end up back in prison. Paul had no money, and the small amount he could hope to get from OW wouldn't pay for a room and allow him to eat. Not that there were any rooms available. Try finding a room, phoning from a prison. He wanted to get a place in a treatment center, but when he applied, they all had waiting lists of close to a year. So what was he going to do? He'd been keeping in touch with an old girlfriend while he was in prison. she was also trying to get clean. She told him he could stay at her place for a couple of months, sleep on the couch, while he looked for a place and tried to find a job. Oh yeah, a job. Paul hadn't had a real job for more than 15 years, and he had some violence on his record. Minor stuff, but still. There are no ways you can hide a 15-year gap on a job application. And nobody wants to hire someone who has violence on their record. And still, Paul wanted to give change a try. One more time for his mother. And because he was convinced that the next overdose would be the end. The last one nearly was. So he moved in with the old girlfriend. He attended NA, CA, AA, whatever he could find. 3 meetings a week. Without them, he felt he really would be lost. At least these were people who knew what he was dealing with. And he kept trying to get work. It took a couple of months, but he finally got hired at a meat processing plant, gutting chickens. Things were looking up. Then the old girlfriend became the new girlfriend. And he relaxed a little. His girlfriend, she was still struggling with her addiction to cocaine. He'd occasionally see the traces of it in the apartment. His new friends at CA, Cocaine Anonymous, warned him that she was far too much of a risk for him. But this was his girlfriend. He couldn't just walk out on her. One afternoon, he came home early and she was high. And there was still one more line of coke on the counter. Well, he gave in. That night, he went to his CA meeting and came clean. Back to the beginning. Life is a battle. The old you pushing against the new you, and the new you pushing back. Change takes time, incredible effort, and support from others. Paul's not a real person. He's bits and pieces of more than 200 men I've worked with. I've learned that there are very few people capable of change without the support of others. And for many, all their bridges have been burnt, abandoned by family, friends, and even the system. Nobody trusts them anymore. We all tell them to change, but we don't believe they will. The Bridge, for more than 45 years, and now BPM for the past 5, have helped men who are trying to change their lives stay with the program. How do we do this? How do we help? Well, we run programs in the Ontario Correctional Institute in Brampton. We have weekly support programs discussing healthy social skills. This is where most residents first get to know us. It's where the relationships are built. We provide pre-release planning. We meet with men who are making a plan of recovery, and we assist them. We are the people who actually come in with the experiences of having been through what they're facing. And we provide backpacks. Our backpack program's been around for a long time. It used to be men coming out of prison would be given a clear plastic bag to carry all their belongings in. And their belongings generally weren't that much. So we give them backpacks, and we provide them with hygiene supplies, toothpaste, toothbrushes, kind of thing that they're going to need the first few days that they're out. And we also provide clothing. A lot of the men only have the clothes they were wearing when they were arrested. These can be rather ratty outfits, and very often men are arrested in the summer and find themselves being released in the winter. A pair of shorts in January doesn't keep you warm. For men who will be staying in the region, we provide intensive support for a minimum of 1 week and as much as several months. If they want, I go to appointments with them. I sometimes just drive them around. We talk and drink a lot of coffee. In addition to the clothing and backpacks that we provide to everyone being released, those staying with us can get a cell phone with a month's worth of coverage to allow them to keep in touch. And we give them Presto passes. We put $25 on them so that they can get to appointments. For anyone who has access to Zoom, we have weekly support programs. These are run by the men in the community, the men in the group. They're very similar to the meetings that we provide in the institution. The questions, the discussions are different because the environment's different. We also have monthly treatment programs. These are meetings, this again was started by members of the community. And what it is there are programs that they participated in treatment that when they're back out, they're still important to them. They're still helpful in their recovery, and recovery takes time. It doesn't take days, it doesn't take months, it takes many years. This is an opportunity to keep hold of those things that have made a difference for them. We also have podcasts. A number of our guys have come together and they're looking at the different mental health issues that they've had to deal with. And they are similar for most people dealing with addictions. This is an opportunity to talk and to share what they have learned and the coping mechanisms they have. These podcasts, by the way, are available to anybody dealing with these problems. We have a monthly gathering. Once a month, we come together just to socialize. We call it our Men in the Kitchen program. My wife came up with the name. She found it quite amusing, the idea of a group of men sitting around drinking coffee and chatting and she thought that this was a great way to it's an opportunity to be with other people who have some understanding of what they've been through. And we provide purpose. We provide our members opportunities to contribute to the recovery of others. This is an important thing for many men coming out of prison, trying to change their lives. They're trying to focus themselves outward instead of always inward. We can't ask people to become contributing members of society if we're not willing to let them contribute. I've asked several members of our group, Brampton Prison Ministry, to join us today to tell you a bit about their journey of recovery, their challenges, their victories, and their failures. I have asked Robert, Mike, Chris, and Christopher to just talk to you for a few minutes, and then we're going to give you a few minutes just to ask questions. And once all four have spoken, we'll open up the floor to discussion. So, Robert, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Hi, my name is Robert, and I'm a 35-year-old individual who is a childhood sexual abuse survivor from the ages of 8 to 12. I started to smoke, do drugs, drink, and view pornography at 8 years old. And this became a very destructive trend into my adult years. I'm a repeat offender with 3 different convictions spanning from 2011, 2012, and finally in 2020, all for offending online. I'm currently on probation until 2026. I was lucky to be incarcerated at OCI, or Ontario Correctional Institute, all 3 times, twice at the Brampton location, and the last time at Maplehurst CC, or Correctional Compound in Milton, due to the pandemic. Due to the treatment at OCI and continued treatment, both via groups, counseling, and 12-step meetings, this upcoming November 11th, I'll have 12 years of sobriety from alcohol, 10 years from hard drugs, a year and a half from marijuana, and I haven't viewed any kind of pornography since 2020 when I was arrested and incarcerated the last time. The groups that I attend for continued support and understanding are as follows: Circle of Hope, Brampton Prison Ministries, or BPM, AA, or Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, and I am looking. I know before the pandemic, London had a pornography or porn addicts group. I just have recently moved back to London, so I haven't looked it up yet, but I plan to. Circle of Hope is a support group directly for helping sexual offenders reintegrate into society, support one another by continuing to challenge and understand our issues. Circle of Hope helps me continue to be honest, be accountable, and remain teachable. Brampton Prison Ministries is more general, but has weekly based topic discussions such as shame, guilt, depression, anxiety, and monthly gatherings for communal support. I continue to go to both these groups on a regular basis via Zoom meetings, and will continue to do so for the rest of my life. Brampton Prison Ministries also has a backpack program, which helped me a lot when I was released because I did not have toiletries or deodorant, which the bags had. They also, Mark and the rest of BPM, even though I did find my own place to live, were helping me look for a place because upon release, I was more or less in a shelter I had 3 weeks to find my own place from the shelter. And that was with the discharge planning that OCI does provide. Mark also helped me a lot go to probation meetings until I actually moved to London from Brampton. We would meet up for coffee and have discussions. And also the Presso card. Mark put $25 on from BPM and the Presso card helped me get to some appointments that Mark could not give me a ride to there and back. Or also just learn Brampton so I could discover where food banks were, where some counseling appointments are. So that was a very big help. BPM has also helped me stay sober, repair relationships with friends, family, and the community. I also attend groups at KMH in Toronto, both via Zoom and in person, and the Canadian Mental Health Association, or CMHA, as well as 12-step meetings like Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous. I continue to go to at least 3 meetings a week for my 12 steps and have a professional counselor as well to deal with other issues stemming from the trauma I've endured as a child, but also the trauma I've caused, especially my parents and other loved ones. So in January, I'm hoping to go to Fanshawe College for a mental health and addictions course. With the help and support of the groups I'm in, I'm hoping to start a group of men who struggle with these issues, plus help them reintegrate back into society after being incarcerated or in some kind of institution. Helping others really helps me stay sober from my addictions, deals with my issues, and stay connected with my community and support system. When I stop going to groups or work in my recovery program, I either relapse or reoffend. It's that simple and that dire. Thank you for your time, and I'm open to answer any questions about recovery.
Sorry about that, Ken. If you have any questions, would you please either put up your hand or do the raised hand on the screen?
There's nothing yet in the chat. I think we are listening to the stories and learning from them. And maybe we don't yet have any questions that are worthy of being asked. We want to hear more.
That's good. Chris.
Good morning, everyone. I discovered pornography at 5 years old when I found my biological father's magazines and was molested between the ages of 7 and 10 at a daycare I was attending. These are 2 of the factors that led to my struggle with pornography. In my early 30s, I was first arrested. This started a process of intensive treatment, which included attending the group Celebrate Recovery and personal one-on-one counseling. As a result of these measures, I served 3 months of a 9-month sentence as I was granted provincial parole. Upon my release, I started to rebuild my life, and things were going great for about 8 years. I had family support, I had the support of my recovery community. I joined a church and was an active participant in the worship scene. I created a brand new circle of friends and stumbled into a great career path. But life happened, and I started to slowly cease doing the activities and moving away from the relationships that kept me sexually sober. Isolated and feeling frustrated with the ongoing consequences of having a criminal record, I had started to reoffend. I was arrested for a second time and served 6 months. During this time, I didn't even attempt to get sober, and in fact started reoffending 2 weeks after I was granted bail. Upon my release, I moved to Toronto and continued my offense cycle. I was arrested the third time, and this was the most devastating as it occurred after my stepfather's death. I ended up spending 2 years of dead time due to my continued offense cycle and the Crown's proposal for a long-term supervision order, as well as the COVID pandemic and the chaos it created in the criminal justice system. I was sentenced to 4 years, but due to my dead time, I only ended up serving a sentence of 9 more months. Due to the pandemic, OCI, located in Brampton, was forced to relocate to Maplehurst and there run a reduced program. However, this ended up being to my benefit. Even though I tried to attend OCI for my previous sentences, they were all too short for me to be considered. In this new location and with the reduced program, being totally honest, they were desperate for people to attend. I was able and gained treatment for my issues and there grieved the passing of my father. Upon my release from OCI, I had nothing. My bank account was empty, and I was mandated as part of my living conditions to live in a halfway house, St. Leonard's Place, away from my mother and my friends that had since turned their backs on me. I was not able to work and had other conditions that prevented me from fully participating in society. Within 6 months, my mother had also moved to Saskatchewan to be with the rest of my family and to help look after her ailing mother, leaving me completely without practical family support. I was alone, isolated, bored, in a place surrounded by criminals that had an atmosphere of heightened stress and tension. Exactly the right place and emotional state for a person attempting to restart their recovery to be in. BPM has been a saving grace since my release. During the first few weeks as I struggled with reintegration, Mark was a huge help, taking me for coffee and just talking, as well as driving me to appointments and actually paying for my new ID because I didn't have a bank account. The group's Wednesday night meetings, which are held on Zoom, were at the time inaccessible to me. So he would come and pick me up every single Wednesday, and we'd get to hang out before the meeting, enjoy the meeting, and then briefly talk afterwards as well. I got to meet other people committed to successful reintegration who also had struggles similar to those that I was dealing with. In BPM, I have made friends who have supported me through the practicalities of life, such as moving, but also the emotional challenges of holidays, stress, 2 attacks of pulmonary embolism. That was 3 years ago, and now I have increased my role in BPM, joining the board as we retool for a post-pandemic world and the return of OCI to Brampton and at running a full program. As has already been mentioned, we expanded the Wednesday night meetings and the odd summer barbecue run by volunteer members. Wednesday nights are now run by our client members. We continue to develop and give opportunities for men to take responsibility for their own recovery. Topics are chosen that deal directly with situations that we face in the real world of trying to recover in a chaotic place. We currently run a monthly in-person get-together called Men in the Kitchen, just to hang out and socialize with no agenda other than to develop supporting relationships. We invite current members as well as those no longer attending to join us for some amazing food that I, as your humble host, provide. This helps break down issues of isolation and the fear of being discovered, which I struggle with. It also gives me an opportunity to get back to put into practice the steps of my recovery, and also continue to develop my Scrabble skills, which I started in OCI. We started the monthly treatment review meetings, where we meet to review our topics, coping skills, and treatment material that was covered at OCI, provide meaningful, authentic opportunities to discuss challenges and issues in a safe space without fear of being shamed or rejection. I found that over my first year of relapse, as I attempted to reintegrate, that being out of an intensive recovery atmosphere, I had developed sloppy habits and had started to lapse in the processes that keep me on track. In discussion with other members, we just started this monthly meeting to help us keep us checked into the recovery process. I was also part of the original podcast, which we're now working on our second season, where we gather to share insights into our own stories, provide details of the practically applied therapy skills, and hopefully spread the message that there are opportunities for people dealing with mental health and addiction issues, as well as of past incarceration, to successfully reintegrate into society and become productive people. The members of BPM have taken on a greater role in fundraising. We run pancake breakfasts and another event that Mike will talk about. We continue to be BPM in a position to deliver the needed services and support for those hiding in plain sight. BPM has been vital to helping me recover from the chaos I created through my own choices, and I'm honored to be part of an organization in our effort to help men take responsibility for past actions, while also providing opportunities and support to move beyond that past as we all journey towards wholeness. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions? Apparently not yet. Mike, your turn.
Good morning. My name is Mike. I've been out, it'll be coming 8 years on November 17th. I spent 18 months at the Ontario Correctional Institution after spending 2 months at Central North up in Penetang when I was transferred to OCI. After my sentence, when I was being released, I used to live in London, and I talked to my parents, and I didn't think it was a good idea to move back to London, and I agree with them. So now here I am, getting released and having nowhere to go. I was brand new to the GTA, to Brampton, and I kept saying, okay, now what do I do? I can't go back to London. So during my pre-release, I met with Red, which is currently now BPM at OCI, and we talked about everything, what I could do to get out, how I could get out, where I would live. BPM currently used to be the bridge, helped me find a place to live. They helped me by making sure I had all my documents that I needed. Mark was kind enough to pick me up the day after my release, take me to the probation office to get set up, talk to me about the program and how it's run. Took me to my first in-person meeting when it was the bridge. We would talk a lot. I was privileged to one of the backpacks, which was really nice because I had nothing when I got out. And backpacks, I had my deodorant, my razor, shaving cream, shampoo, all the stuff I needed, plus the pesto press, and even provided a cell phone. So I keep up probation, my parents who still support me, and with all my programs. I've been with BPM and the Bridge for about 8 years, and they've been a big help, especially with our Wednesday night group meetings where we talk about all our issues. And if I have an issue, it's nice to know that I can go to somebody and say I'm having a problem where I feel like I'm falling back in my old ways. And this is going on in my life and I need someone to talk to. So a lot of times I would meet with Mark and we'd go out for coffee. And same thing, just talk and say, here's my situation. Like I ran into a housing problem with my previous landlord. So I talked to Mark about that and we got that solved. So yeah, BPM has been great when I got released, as especially with their support, with their men in the kitchen. And 3 years ago, I brought in the fundraising idea, and I run once a year. We run a trivia event, which I brought up as my father, who was a group in London. I took it from them. And our current one, we had about 20 people show up, but the first one we had about 60. And all the money we raise goes to the backpack program because it costs money to get the backpacks, to get the supplies for them. And it also helps by running more programs and getting us money available for programs. I also invented the pancake breakfast, which we do every few months. I think we got another one coming up soon, I think, but I gotta work on that. Yeah, so they've been great. So I still have friends, and I still talk to my parents in London. But the biggest thing is just knowing that the group is here to help me, because as I said, when I was in, it was like what I do now. It was my second time in. The first time I served time. It was for about 6 months, and then my current stint was 18 months at OCI for the same offense. And OCI was a big help with the programs they have inside, with recovery programs, and talking to social workers and case managers who don't believe in just locking you up and throwing away the key. They believe in helping you by learning about what you did, why you did it. They talk to you about it. They want to make sure that you don't reoffend again. So they're more like a treatment center compared to like a prison where you're locked up. So with their help and BPM, I've learned a lot, and I plan to stay with the group actually for a lifetime, and just know that I have the supports there if I need them. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Mr. Christopher.
Okay, I'm actually gonna.
Christopher's here with me, so I'll move out of the screen and he will move in. Oh, chairs on rollers.
I know, how about that? Now, I'm sacrificing the lens glare for my eyesight, but then again, I don't need to see, because I'm only looking at myself and several other faces. Good morning. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christopher. I was arrested in 2018 for an offense that I had been living with for a very, very long time. It was sexual in nature, this offense, and thereby something that I knew was a problem, but really couldn't find a way to bring up or express in such a way to resolve it as a troubling issue. In that sense, I was rather fortunate that I was arrested and that the opportunity was given to me to attend OCI for treatment of my offending behavior, which was something that I couldn't seek out on my own. I had to become a part of the criminal justice system in order to seek out the help that was offered to me. I was at OCI at a very interesting time. I was one of the first 27 evacuated to Toronto South when COVID basically steamrolled OCI. I think we calculated at about a 90-odd% infection rate for the residents alone. We can't quantify the staff, but the residents we estimate about 9% had tested positive for COVID at one time. But anyhow, I mean, this is at the beginning of the things where nobody knew what was going on, and nobody had any ideas to how this was going to play out. So the transition from the status quo at OCI to the intermediary situation at Toronto South, and then eventually to Maplehurst CC when that was able to be arranged. I can speak towards there being a definite difference in how things were run at OCI as opposed to at Maplehurst. And there's practicalities of the Institute meant that certain programs couldn't be run. Practicalities of the pandemic meant that the volunteer programs, of which BPM and the Bridge program, which they run at OCI, is one. An irony is that I've become very, very involved with BPM, and I was at the cusp of moving from one set of programs to another, which would have had me attend the Thursday night Bridge sessions, but I was evacuated the week before that was going to happen. And volunteers was told not to show up before that. Anyways, but aside from all of that, my opportunity at OCI was well used. I was fortunate that before the pandemic made us have to change everything, I had already gone through my clinical programming, the nuts and bolts of recovery in a therapeutic means before moving from one location to another. Now, I can't speak towards the efficacy of one program to the next run in OCI or Maplehurst. They were run by the same clinicians, but there's definitely a gap between sessions being run, and some people went through their sentence ostensibly at OCI, but failed to receive any of the benefits of the programming because their sentence overlapped with that intercession due to COVID. When I was released, the nature of my offenses had turned most of my family away from me, and was not recommended to return to where I'd lived before. And I found myself considering, by lack of options, winding up in Brampton, and not having any idea about the town or how to find anything. I was very, very fortunate that I was put into contact with Mark and BPM. And considering this scenario as it was being released in November of 2020, everything was still upside down and sideways. And Mark was able to make arrangements to find a place for me to stay, which unfortunately didn't work out. After a few months. The living situation fell apart, and Mark again came to my help and found me where I'm living now. And to say that I've been at my present address for more than 3 years is a big deal for me. And that indicates for me, who I have, aside from my criminal history and behavior, I have a slew of mental and emotional health issues, as do many people who I associate with in BPM. So the looking after that and taking care of that is being part of this journey. And I've just completely derailed my train of thought. Anyways, as I'd like to say, the nature of it is that, and I'm going to sum up by saying the one thing that hit me the most about Mark's presentation as I was putting together that wonderful PowerPoint that you guys saw, was the line at the end of his "what we do for people and give them purpose." That hit like a ton of bricks when I was working with that, because I was working with that sentence in a way in which I have found purpose, in that I'm putting together a PowerPoint presentation, or I'm doing other things with regards to managing the communications of Brampton Prison Ministry, which is something that I stumbled into. We lost a member due to a very sudden death, and his loss was felt amongst many different people who realized that there were things that this individual was very bombastic about, that we needed to step up and continue his movement forward. And it just so turns out that, hey, graphic design is something I can do. And that's, I mean, I'm being facetious. I didn't realize it was. I've always worked with, I'm a writer and historian, but to realize that I can be, creative, and that creativity goes towards a purpose. And that, that is me giving back in my own way. So that's me in a nutshell. And Mark, I'm going to give you back the camera.
Hello again. So, just want to make a couple of statements before we do open up to questions. One, what is the Ontario Correctional Institute? Not everybody knows. Ontario has a number of treatment centers dealing with different types of problems. The Ontario Correctional Institute deals with men who have addiction problems, addiction and behavioral problems. And they provide treatment to, they they try and help these individuals learn how to deal with their problems. A person does not get a sentence and go to the Ontario Correctional Institute. It is necessary for them to apply from another institution to be transferred there because they are looking for treatment. They aren't just simply looking to serve their sentence. So the people we deal with are people who are really serious about changing their lives. I said a couple of things, but actually that was the one thing I wanted to bring up. The fact that this is a special place, and between Bridge and Brampton Prison Ministry, we have been providing services there for 50 years.